how do we not internalize traumatic events?
Wow, that's a good question.
The very fact that something is an adverse event
Sure.
doesn't mean that you have to be
Traumatized by that. Yeah.
by an adverse event.
Sure.
How do we, what do you think? How do we get around that? Do you have a definition for trauma?
The way I view trauma is both a personal wound we carry and the communal fracture we inherit. Someone may injure me verbally, physically, and that's the wound I carry. But then there's the inherited aspect. There may be something, and you talked about not generational curses, but generational habits, right? There may be things that I may inherit because of the community I'm born into, whether that's my immediate family or the community that shapes me.
On one hand, black men and boys are traumatized constantly. But on the other hand, we are not given the emotional tools to transform that pain. We are taught masculine norms that do not support mental health.
Correct.
What would you say about that?
Amen.
Amen.
Yes, and amen.
What describes you does not have to define you.
Absolutely.
What defines you is what you do with what describes you. And so, yes, I grew up without a father, and yes, I grew up not knowing my father was. That describes me. But it does not have to define my experience. It does not have to define how I live my life. That's a message I think that we must continue to give to men to help them overcome their trauma. Welcome to another episode of Real Life Matters. I am your host, Jason Perry, where we are talking about real life problems with real life people with the desire to come up with real life solutions. And so I can't guarantee that you're watching these episodes in sequence. So in another episode of Real Life Matters, I met with my friend Dr. Stephen Bell, and we talked about helping men heal. And in that conversation, talking about helping men heal, we touched on the issue of trauma in men. And we talked about some things, but there's a whole lot of meat left on that bone.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of meat left on that bone. So as a result, I said, you know what, we need to continue that conversation. So if you watched the last episode, you might hear some of the same things that you heard before, but we just want to kind of go deeper on some of them, maybe elaborate on some of those things. But we're just going to we want to be able to talk about why men are hurting, what are some of the traumas, what is the definition of trauma, and then how that trauma is manifested in men's lives. And I fully recognize that women are also traumatized, but the focus of Real Life Matters right now is on helping men heal. And so I really want to zero in on that. Besides that, I'm a man. And as a man, I recognize my own trauma, and I recognize how those things impact me, how it impacts me as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as a pastor. And so, we're gonna jump into that. And so, welcome, my friend Stephen.
My brother, bless you, sir.
Yes, sir. God bless you.
Glad to be back.
I'm glad that you're here. Glad that I can see you and not view you.
Yeah, my man. Just like a good preacher.
There you go. Let's just hop right in.
Sure.
Let's review for a second. You are the pastor of
All Nations Community Church of Homewood. And I have to make sure I make that distinction because there's like a million All Nations out there. Yeah.
Okay, of Homewood, Illinois.
Yes.
Not Homewood, Alabama.
Absolutely. Okay. There's a difference.
There's a difference. Okay. I often say, why should I listen to you?
Okay.
I know you've earned your doctorate in pastoral counseling.
Yep.
And your doctoral thesis was on the intersection between theology and therapy. So you have quite a bit of experience educationally and pastorally in terms, and there's a passion that you have about helping men heal, helping people heal, work through that. So
absolutely.
Do you have a definition for trauma?
Actually, so after our last conversation, I feel like we didn't dive into that a little bit. So I said, well, let me spend some time fleshing that out just a little bit. And the way I view trauma is both a personal wound we carry and the communal fracture we inherit.
The personal wound we carry and the
communal fracture
communal fracture
we inherit.
that we inherit.
So it speaks to the personal encounters we have. So someone may injure me verbally, physically, and that's the wound I carry. But then there's the inherited aspect. There may be something, and you talked about not generational curses, but generational habits, right? There may be things that I may inherit because of the community I'm born into, whether that's my immediate family or the community that shapes me. So whether there's a term from Chicago, jumping off the porch, and that's the idea of kind of joining a gang, right? So you may jump into a whole nother community that can be just as damaging, and you begin to inherit toxic masculinity or hyper masculinity. So all those kinds of things shape you by the communal aspect. And the idea behind the trauma is that it's not that it's just something that happens to you, but then it begins to be something that you carry with you going forward, and it almost traps you or freezes you in that moment and becomes this anchor in your soul that renders you almost impotent emotionally, or cause you to act out. As we talked a little bit last time, we act out because we cannot articulate what it is that's happening within us. We know it's something there, but not being able to label that and really describe what that is in an intelligent way.
Yeah.
And let me clarify.
Go ahead.
An emotionally intelligent
Emotionally
way.
intelligent
There's a
way.
difference, right? Because you can be intelligent, cognitively, right? But there's a level of emotional intelligence that requires us to be able to identify the various emotions that we might experience throughout the day, and dare I say, throughout the moments. So it could be just in that moment. I may be happy, then experience sadness, all in the same moment.
Yeah. So I want to do this. I want to give you, and just addressing what you just said, I want to give you some definitions or some statements about trauma that I use in the training I do. I have a workshop that I do called Healing the Invisible Brokenness of Manhood.
Yeah.
Moving beyond trauma to a renewed identity. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a couple of statements. I want you to respond to those.
Sure.
So one of them is this: trauma is the result of physical, emotional, or psychological pain that haunts a person through life rather than being contained in a specific moment in time. In short, trauma is the result of being haunted or perpetually stuck in a moment of pain.
Yeah.
What would you say about that?
Yeah, that's that echo effect,
That echo.
right? So it's that the moment it happens and it reverberates throughout the person's life. The idea is that once you experience and have encountered that trauma, as you become emotionally intelligent, then you're able to metastasize that or metabolize that into your well-being. So it's not just that I want to leave it in that moment, but now I know how to carry that with me as it informs me to be a more emotionally intelligent person. Because those traumatic moments help you become more aware of the range of emotions you may encounter. So it could be grief, it could be sadness, it could be happiness, it could be feeling powerful. It is all those ranges of emotions that trauma helps to inform how you carry that with you, so that when the next moment occurs, you have a basis of information, because that experience echoes.
I'm gathering data in my brain for stuff to come back to.
I love that.
Okay, all right.
Real-time processing.
Real-time processing, okay. So here's another statement. This is from an article, and it says this: on one hand, black men and boys are traumatized constantly. But on the other hand, we are not given the emotional tools to transform that pain. We are taught masculine norms that do not support mental health.
Correct.
What would you say about that?
Amen.
Amen.
Yes, and amen.
Yeah.
Because of the history that has played a part into that. So if we look at historically, what was that movie, The Birth of a Nation, where it began to characterize black men as this uncontrollable, rapacious animal that need to be put down. Now look at a stereotype of men, black men specifically, being violent, being out of control, viewed as an animal. And so that's the narrative that has been portrayed by our society. Then that's a stereotype that's projected onto malehood, particularly in black communities. So then we give license to erratic behavior because we believe that black men are violent, right? So there's this inherent threat that people tend to have when they see, oh, that's a black man. Historically, they've been characterized as this rapacious, uncontrollable animal, and we adopt that, and it creates this, it's like we're being re-traumatized over and over. And when we see moments in our society where black men are being put down, it almost reinforces the narrative.
Yeah.
And we become numb to that.
Yeah.
Say, well, that's what you do to an animal that's uncontrolled.
We see these messages, we hear these messages, we see them portrayed in media, in the TV shows we watch. It becomes self-fulfilling prophecy within our music. I may be jumping way ahead of where I want to go, but I just feel like I need to ask this question right now.
Sure.
How do we not internalize traumatic events?
Wow, that's a good question.
The very fact that something is an adverse event doesn't mean that you have to be traumatized by an adverse event.
Sure.
How do we, what do you think? How do we get around that?
I think it goes back to emotional intelligence. You mentioned, as we have seen things play out about how we identify as black men and how we project a certain image. Well, at some point we have to create spaces where we can give the men opportunity to learn the language of emotions so that we don't have to take on that experience. That doesn't have to be our lived experience. And I think we live in a culture in which that's really the norm, because if you have not been given the tools or the skills to know how to deal with that information, then how else will you deal with the information if all you know how to do is internalize? So growing up in the hood, there are some things that happen to me directly, and then there are things that happen to me indirectly. So I may have seen someone in my neighborhood get jumped on, and then I begin to internalize that, and watch this, and I begin to move differently based upon that experience.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen to me directly.
Right.
But because I didn't know how to process that experience to say, hey, first of all, I don't even know all the details that happened right there. I don't know what led to that event. But then I began to develop the skills to say, hey, that is not my experience. That did not happen to me. And here's what I am experiencing right now, and being aware of what is happening within Steve. And oftentimes the hardest journey for many men is the journey inward.
Okay, it didn't happen to me, but I'm in the same environment, so it can. That takes a high level of emotional intelligence.
Correct.
For people who have not yet, especially for children, that have not yet developed that.
So you walk guarded.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm dumping you into a bucket of paint and saying, "Don't get paint on you." That's a challenge.
Right.
And so now, and then if you go back into a home where those people have been traumatized, they cannot necessarily give you the skills that you need, the tools that you need in order to properly, to do what needs to be done.
Correct.
I'm just thinking about, as we're taping right now at my house, I'm getting my patio redone.
Okay.
And so right before I left, I got back out of the car and I went out to him and I said, "Hey, can you do a favor? I got some bushes here." And he has a little bobcat, right? And as I was getting in my car, I saw his bobcat, and his bobcat on the front end had the forks on it. And I had just left my backyard, and I went, I got to pull up these bushes, but I'm going to pull them up with a shovel and a pitchfork and digging in my back. He got a bobcat. Hey, I just want to interrupt the podcast just for a moment to say this. If you haven't already done it, I want you to subscribe, like, or follow me on social media. A lot of what we're talking about in this podcast is heavy. And I know, because I have been through these things myself, I have been able to come through them, not just to say I've experienced them, but I've experienced healing from some of these things. And I've been able to put that healing pathway into a couple of resources that I want to mention to you. One of them is becoming a gatekeeper of yourself. How do you look at your own life and say, these are some things I need to take control of in my own life in terms of what I'm bringing into my life? The second resource I want to mention to you is Dads and Diamonds Are Forever. I know that a lot of men feel inadequate to be the husbands, the fathers, and the men that they desire to be. And Dads and Diamonds Are Forever helps men become that person. If this content is really resonating with you, if it's hitting you in some kind of special way, there's a couple of ways that you can respond. One is to go to the website and get access to these resources. The second way is that you can leave a comment here. Let's start a conversation. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your thoughts. He ain't even got to get his hands dirty, right? And so I said, would you mind it's right here next to the patio,
Sure.
Would you mind just using, he said, oh, that'll be easy. If he was from Arkansas, he'd say, too easy.
Too easy.
Too easy.
Too easy, yes.
But I said, he had the tools.
And the skill.
And the skill to do what I could have done, but it probably would. Oh man, listen to this.
Come on.
I got sciatica.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I could have done it longer, but I could have done more damage to myself by doing that. But the person with the right skills and the right tools and the knowledge can do it significantly better and faster than I can do it. So when we think about this issue of dealing with trauma, you can do this ACEs score to see the level of trauma that kids have experienced in young ages, right?
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
how that passes them on and how that gets passed on from generation to generation, or even just throughout their life.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and even not just generation, even within their life. Part of the challenge that we face, if you are in an environment that is toxic,
Yeah.
if you're in an environment that is unhealthy, that is emotionally unhealthy, if you're in a situation where mom is on crack or dad was abusive
Yeah.
or brothers were gangbanging and those things came in the house, that is your environment.
Sure.
And you may see that in your environment, but then how do you turn around? Who is helping you navigate things? That is a major problem. As I think
Yeah.
about that, I'm really not sure how we deal with that.
We
you know,
all
for those
have
kids.
the power to choose.
Yeah.
Okay. And at some point, and I thought you were actually describing my whole household.
Yeah.
Dad's abusive, mom
Yeah.
addicted to crack, because that literally is my lived experience.
Wow. Okay.
And in that instance, some of it was by accident.
By the way, I didn't know that. And I didn't know that.
That's the spirit of the Lord,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
And some of these things I learned along the way were just by accident. I just stumbled into it. But then there's some things I decided, okay, I need to do something different if I'm going to expect different results or different outcomes. So if I knew that I could not get what I needed in the home, I discovered that I was walking guarded, and I carried that forward because of all these other inherited experiences around me, that community that continued to try to project a certain way of how I should live my life. I began to connect with people who looked like they were living a healthier, vibrant life, and began to just ask probing questions. And it's okay to not know the answer to life experiences. It was okay. There were questions I had. Well, why did I have to experience this? Why did I have to have a mom like this? Why did I have to have a dad like this? Why I'm in this neighborhood? I had all these questions that could never be answered. However, there's some things I needed to get under control, which was my own emotions, my own mind, my own state of being, my own agency. And I realized as I began to grow that I wanted to live different. I did not want to carry the habits of my family forward.
Right.
And I began to connect with people who they looked like they were further along in life than I. And I said, okay, well, how can I get there? How can I arrive there? And we have to move away from this idea of pride to think I have to have all the answers. There are people that are put in our communities that can give us information. And now all you're doing, I remember one guy in particular, his name was, we called him Bubba. Again, I'm from Arkansas, so we got a bunch of Bubbas. But he said, Steve, he says, along the way, and again, this was a throwaway comment for him. He says, along the way in life, Steve, you need to make sure you pick up the nuggets along the way, because you never know how that would add value to who you are as a person. It was a throwaway comment for him, but it was impactful for me. So I took that approach in life. So I said, okay, what can I learn from Jason? What can I learn from John? What can I learn from these individuals that will help shape me into the person I envision myself becoming, which is another piece of the journey. I had to have a vision of who I wanted to be that was different than where I was. And be okay with saying that where I am right now, I'm not comfortable. I'm not content with where I am. And so there was this, and this is before I got saved. Okay, this is just knowing that as a man, this is who I wanted to be as a person that was different than what I saw in the household, that I saw that was different than was in my community, that did not give me. But then there were some examples that were in the community. Hubert Brown, who stopped by and check on my brothers and I when we're in that dire situation. Just stopping to check in was powerful to me. Or a Reverend James Massey, who would take my brothers and I to the church whenever they would have vacation Bible school, not knowing the depth of depravity we were experiencing, but just willing to see the other person, to see people who were in need of help and do something about it.
You're bringing up here something that is extraordinarily important. I'm thinking about people who may be listening to this saying, but I've been traumatized, and what do I do with this? And so there's a couple of directions. I think about children. It speaks to the importance of the village for those children.
Absolutely.
Because your particular direct environment may not have the skill sets, may not have the tools that you need in order to give you, in order to what you want. But it says something about the village coming around and saying, I recognize there's a deficit here.
Sure.
What can I do? The importance of mentoring.
Yeah.
You know, the importance of aunts and uncles who are really having a positive say in the life of a child. And aunts and uncles do not have to be biological.
Come on.
You know, it's that I think about, people have said this to me, you are such a good father. How did you become such a good father when you never had one yourself? I've never called a man daddy in my life. And so they said, how do you become such a good father when you didn't have one? I said, I saw some good fathers. And there are some certain things that I was exposed to that gave me a vision of what could be.
Yeah.
Exposure is a massive issue in terms of even helping us deal with trauma, to know that there's another way.
Yeah.
There's
always
another
is.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I think that person need to hear that. There's always another way. And sometimes trauma traps you into thinking that what your experience is all that you're going to experience.
Right.
And then now you walk in that pain perpetually as that echoes, and you'll hear people say over and over, well, but this happened to me.
Right.
I was abused as a child, or I was poor, or I was this. And to think that there's no way out of that. There's always a way out.
I'm not sure if it was a reel I watched recently. This person said, trauma has this way of robbing us of dreaming about our future.
Yeah.
And it was a powerful statement, because they said, if you are continually traumatized, you begin to believe that what's the point of even dreaming about something else? So I just stopped. I just stopped dreaming. That's not possible to me. And so as I'm thinking about how do we need to help men, we need to help children, but as a community, as churches, as Boys and Girls Clubs, we need to be creating these environments that may counteract some of the negativity that our kids are seeing.
Absolutely.
And that they they grow up to be something else. There's a quote by, I think it was initially attributed to Frederick Douglass. He says, it's better to build boys than to heal men. And I've added to that, and I say it is better to build boys than to heal men, but we must heal men who can build boys.
Facts.
Or they will continue to create boys who are broken.
Yeah.
You know, because again, that trauma that gets passed on.
Yeah. It was something you said in our last segment too, talking about that person who minimized your pain.
Yeah.
As a part of that healing process, that we have to also name the fact that men experience pain.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And give them space to articulate that in the world, so that they don't feel that they have to withhold. And it's almost as if even saying that I've had traumatic experiences almost make me feel weak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That I've experienced pain, that makes me feel weak. And we have to, I'm going to say this, we have to normalize even the word trauma, so that we can begin to develop as a person. Okay. Craig Rochelle talks about you cannot defeat what you don't define. Okay.
Right.
So that gives permission to name whatever that is. Okay. So if trauma has been this prevailing problem in your life that has paralyzed you, or in some writers you'll hear this phrase, frozen moments. Where you become paralyzed by that experience that does not give you the space to move forward. Brother, I'm gonna tell you right now that we experience pain. That does not mean that I'm weak. It does not mean that I'm a punk or a sissy. That just means I'm aware that there's a reality that I will encounter some pain, but it does not give me license to become emotionally impotent.
Right.
That I need to be able to stay engaged with who I am, with all of who I am, and know that trauma does not rob me of that reality. It doesn't rob me of dreaming. Because when you made that comment, immediately it made me think about the 14-year-old version of myself when I was thinking of going to high school. There was a point in my life, because of the trauma that we lived in that was perpetual, having abusive dad, drug addict mom, dangerous community. Man, I didn't see 18.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you're talking about not dreaming. I just couldn't see 18, or let alone being married or having kids or being 30 years old, because I've seen so much in my community of people not making it to 18 or not making it to 30, because that was the environment we grew up in. So it was robbing me of dreaming. So when I turned 21, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I might see 22. Then when I became 30, I was like, man, I can see myself now being a grandfather.
Yeah.
I can see myself, being this person who is investing back into the community, not taking from the community, which is my lived experience.
Right, right. I was born into poverty. And I've talked about this in some other reels that people can check out from me, where I've talked about my experience where my mother's first husband was killed trying to kill her and my brother, and left her with 6 children, 9 and under, in a house with no running toilet, no running water, an outhouse, slop jar for a toilet, and a coal stove for the house. So I was 7 before I moved into a house with a toilet and running water.
Yeah.
And I look at that, and my brother went off to college out of that environment. And I look at that, and I look at my family and my siblings, and my brother was an executive for 3 different airlines, including United Airlines and Frontier. Not small ones,
Yeah.
My sister is a professor, head of a department of counseling, University of Louisville, has a doctorate. Another sister was master teacher for the state of Illinois and ran, hundreds of people under her and 2 masters. I have a master's. And I look at these things. My brother runs his own business. Another brother's a stockbroker. How do we come out of that? Yeah. How do we come out of that kind of trauma? Healthy. I don't know if we came out healthy, but we came out.
You came
right?
out, man.
We came out. But how do we achieve that? How do we get that level of achievement coming out of a situation where we had coal stove and we peed in a bucket?
Yeah.
I can tell you how. One of the major things, because I know other people that have never made it. I can go right back home now, and they're still there.
Facts. Come on.
And this is the difference of getting exposure. In my household, one, my mother set the tone. My mother went back to school to get her nursing degree with 7 kids.
Come on.
And got her nursing degree, right? So we saw that. In our household, the question was never, are you going to college? The question was where. Now, all of us didn't go.
Sure.
But there was a mindset in terms of education, in terms of improvement. I remember the very first thing that my mother bought me, the first thing I remember my mother buying me was a set of encyclopedias.
Oh, come on.
Man, that opened me up to the entire world.
Yeah.
The exposure of that, right? It's something that's significant that we must be able to give kids to help them overcome some of the traumatic things they deal with.
Sure.
To overcome those things. But we also, with men, we must expose men to other ways of being.
Yep.
We need to expose men to say, wait a minute, bro, I understand that's your lived experience. But as I've said before, any number of times, what describes you does not have to define you.
Absolutely.
What defines you is what you do with what describes you. And so, yes, I grew up without a father, and yes, I grew up not knowing my father was. That describes me. But it does not have to define my experience. It does not have to define how I live my life. That's a message I think that we must continue to give to men to help them overcome their trauma. Yeah, you've been through that.
Yes.
I get it.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that that's your ceiling now. I used to tell the students in the community, because I went back to that same poor community, and I worked with students, and I would often tell them, your stumbling blocks, you need to learn how to turn your stumbling blocks into stepping stones.
Come on.
Okay, it's the hurdles need to just be, I can stand on this hurdle becomes a platform for me to see what's next down the road.
Yeah.
I think that message is critical for us as we invest in men, as we invest in friends.
Yeah, that exposure is so critical. You think of organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters, they're designed to do that kind of exposure.
Right.
A lot of times you'll see kids who get into that program that are in difficult situations, because I participate as a mentor because I understood that although I had some difficult experiences in my community, I didn't allow that to keep me bound by that. As I discovered healing in the micro sense, as I continue to get healed, I realized I had a responsibility back to that community though. Okay, it wasn't just I got mine, let me get out, but it's I got mine, let me now give back to that very community. So I'm in college. I'm in my fraternity, and part of my job was to help us engage the community. And I discovered that Big Brothers Big Sisters had a community-based program, but then also they had a school-based program. And in order to get my chapter involved, I said, hey, we're going to be involved. I'm asking for permission. I said, hey, we're going to get involved in the school-based program, because all it requires us to do is to give about an hour of our time to go down and mentor some young man. Okay, that's all we're called to do. But it was something in my soul that says I need to move beyond that. So I said, put me in the community-based program. So I ended up getting a little brother, spent years with him, and it was just about exposing him to something different. His father wasn't in his life. He just needed to be exposed to something different. Now, one of the things that I love that they taught us in Big Brothers Big Sisters, it's not about doing magnanimous moments.
Right.
It's not about going to baseball games and football games or going to the amusement park. Let him go to the grocery store with you.
Yeah.
Let him see how you shop, right? Take him with you when you're washing your car.
Right.
Have him with you when you're mowing the lawn.
Right.
I would take my little brother when I used to play basketball, like a religion on the weekend.
Right.
So he didn't play basketball,
Right.
right? All he wanted to do was stay in the house and play video games. So I took him with me. I would bring him out there. I would show him how to shoot. I would have him play. He was terrible, okay? But it's about exposure.
Right.
But he kept getting better. So I met him, he was about 10, 11 years old. By the time he got to high school, now watch this, because he was exposed to it, he made the basketball team at his high school. Now, he was not a starter,
Right.
but because of the exposure, it gave him an opportunity to experience something I didn't even experience.
Right. Right.
That's good.
That's right.
So that even in our exposing people to something different, even though you may not experience that does not mean that the person that you bring along may not get to experience something unique and different.
Yeah.
And we get to celebrate that. Man, I was the loudest one in the
Yeah.
stands
Yeah.
while he was
Yeah.
sitting on the bench. I said, man, put number 22 in.
That's right.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
But it's about exposure. And so if I now have been healed, Resma Menakem wrote this book called My Grandmother's Hands. And he talks about that if you have been healed, regardless of how you arrived at the healing in this community, you now have a responsibility to that community.
Yeah.
And I think we've lost that in our society, that we think that we've like the Jeffersons. We moved on up
Right.
to the east side, and now we have no responsibility to the community we came from.
Right.
And we have to come to the notion that I have gotten this healing at whatever level it is.
Yeah.
But now I want to take that and I want to invest that back to that community. And that's how we see communities change.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have healed people who run.
Yeah. We can cry about the trauma and the difficulties. We can look at all of that, and we can wax eloquent about why. We can look at the historical things that have created trauma.
Facts.
Slavery, Jim Crow, lynching. We can look at those things. We can look at the community issues that have created trauma.
Sure.
We can look at brutality. We can look at crime. We can look at gang violence. We can look at those things create trauma. We can talk about what's happened within our families that have created trauma. Absent dads, wounded mothers. We can look at all of those things. But my issue is, how do we heal?
Yeah.
Not just how do we deal, not how do we hide, but how do we heal? What are the things that we can do as a village,
Sure.
as families, that can create healing? So I'm going to mention a few things that are just coming to my mind right now. I think about the role of the church,
Come on.
of speaking into people. Yes, you need faith. Yes, you need heaven. Yes, you need all of those things. But also need to speak to that becoming wholly healthy.
Yeah.
Of looking at all of those different aspects of the life. And we need to make sure as a church that we are speaking to the wholeness of that person.
Facts.
Also, I want to say something to the mothers and the wives out there. I heard someone say this one: speak to the king, not the criminal. A lot of times we need to as women, I think women need to understand the power of their words. Need to understand the power of your
You
words.
touched on that last time too.
Yeah, man.
That
Those
right there.
Those words are powerful. And what are you saying? What are you saying to your sons?
Yeah.
What are you saying to them? I have learned this. I've seen this. I've seen 3 dysfunctional relationships that I've seen mothers have with the son. And again, I'm not dogging out mothers, because I've seen dysfunctional relationships of fathers with their sons.
Absolutely.
But I'm talking about this in terms of Mothers helping your sons deal with the trauma and helping your husbands and your brothers deal with trauma. What are you speaking into them? But these three dysfunctional relationships are this. Sometimes they cuddle them, treat them like they're their boyfriends. Sometimes they coddle them, they treat them like they're babies. And sometimes they clobber them, they treat them like they're their exes.
Yep.
And those negative things, you are speaking, you're not speaking life into that boy. You're just like you're no good daddy.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Man, that's not going to help it. The power of words, the power of 4 words, I believe in you. You know, are you speaking to the king? Or are you speaking to what you believe is the criminal in that person?
Yeah.
Critical piece for
Part of that has to be having a vision of manhood.
Yeah.
Right?
A positive vision
of manhood so that you can speak to that king. Because if you remember in Lion King, Nala had, they're all grown, but Simba had ran off because he was told that you were responsible for your dad's murder or death. And so Nala, they're grown, she goes off because things have gotten so bad in their home on the Pride Land. She comes into contact with Simba, and she doesn't necessarily just address him as this runaway who's broken, who's defeated, who feels less than, because that's what he was feeling when he left. Felt like a failure. But she spoke to him like he's the king. Even though he was not occupying the role.
Right.
She didn't just talk to him as a failure and keep him there.
Right.
That you abandoned, you left us, you're sorry, good. She says, you're the right king.
Right.
You're the rightful king of Pride Land.
Right.
Take your position.
Right.
And when he took his position, the Pride Land was restored.
That's exactly right.
And there is power in what you say, because her words could have been hurtful and left him there.
Yes.
And he would have never taken his spot. The Pride Land would have continued spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
Our communities are desperately needing for the Simbas to return.
That's right.
But we need to know who he is and call that out.
We need to call that out. I think that, I believe I talked about this before, the gatekeeper. There's a verse in Book of Lamentations, chapter 5, verse 10, I think it is. This says that Lamentations is a book of lament because Jerusalem has been destroyed.
Yeah.
So he's lamenting the position in the community. And he says this, our young men are being hung up by their thumbs, our young women are being raped. He says, and the elders are no longer at the city gate. Wow. And I read that. I may not be quoting that right. As you look at those desperate conditions, but he says that the elders are no longer at the city gates. The city gates, when I read that
is powerful.
That's where the gatekeeper movement came out of.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I read that might be chapter 5, verse 21. Are you looking that up?
Yeah.
It's like 5:16 through 21. You got it?
Yeah.
Why don't you read it if you have it?
I'm going to go a little further back. It says, women are raped in Zion.
Yeah.
Young women in the towns of Judah, princes are hung by their hands. No respect is shown to the elders. Verse 13, young men are compelled to grind at the mill. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And boys stagger under the loads of wood. The old men have left the city gate. The young men, their music. The joy of our hearts has ceased. Our dancing has been turned into mourning. The crown has fallen from our head. God, this is so good. Woe to us, for we have sinned. For this our heart has become sick. For these things our eyes have grown dim. For Mount Zion, which lies desolate, jackals prowl ever before it. Oh gosh.
This is describing.
Oh, this is heavy.
In that powerful statement. So you look at that. That is the description of a community that has been traumatized.
Oh man.
And looking at the condition of every level, male, female, young, old.
Yes, it is.
And the community has lost hope because it has been traumatized. And that is why I say we must bring men of respect back to the gates. We must bring respect back to the men who are at the gates.
Yeah.
And so what is the truth that we are speaking into people? Not just simply being mad about the trauma. Not just simply being sad about the trauma.
Oh God, I was just about to say that.
Not just being angry. No, how do we bring hope?
Yeah.
How do we bring hope to those things? And I just left a conversation right before we started taping, and our session is going to be shorter today because I just got attacked right before we came in, and a person telling me that I was not doing a good job as a leader, as a pastor, because I didn't address directly a situation that was happening, and I'm not even going to mention the name because I say the name,
Sure.
it gets people off and looking at that. But I didn't address from the pulpit this particular cultural, political event.
Jesus.
Right?
I felt you going there.
Yeah.
And so felt you going there.
They just told me, you're failing. You're not doing a good job. And I said, let me tell you how I lead it. And I think this
Come
is
on, man.
okay.
Come on, man.
I said,
Oh.
I am doing some work in my yard right now. I am looking at, I got some dandelions, I'm trying to get rid of them, and I'm putting down fertilizer and things like that. But this is what I've learned. A strong lawn, strong grass will push out the weeds, okay? So if I fertilize my yard, if I keep it aerated, if I seed it, feed it, water it, and those things, seed it, it will push out the weed. On the other hand, if I spend all of my time focusing on the weeds, there's treatments that I can put the weed and I can kill the weeds, but if I don't do the stuff to my lawn, the weeds will be dead, but so will my lawn. I said, so I am going to choose to focus primarily on seeding, feeding, watering my lawn to make it healthy so that it has the power to push out the bad. I will spot treat the weeds when I see them. I said, I need you to understand something, how I'm choosing to lead. I will not spend my time spot treating the political stuff that is popping up because I will spend all of my time killing dandelions. And in the meantime, my yard is dead, the yard of my church. I said, to me, the kingdom of God is the answer. That's my worldview. And the kingdom of God is my answer. And God says this, if you seek my kingdom first, if you seek my kingdom first and his righteousness, the other things will be added.
Yeah.
I am going to, because here's the other piece of it. And again, this is I'm not just going off on a tangent, because what I wanted this person to understand was that just because we're all in the same building doesn't mean we have the same experience. Just because we all singing the same songs don't mean we have the same experience. There's trauma in my life that you are choosing not to look at. And you don't want me, you want me to focus upon this, but you don't want me to focus upon the fact that the person sitting next to you has been traumatized. And I said, you don't want to deal with that.
Come on, man.
I said, so I need you to understand, I said, listen, when we deal with, if I only deal with my people, my past, and my politics, my tribe, my experiences, my ideology, then justice becomes just us. I said, I can't do that. I have to focus upon something bigger than that gives me hope.
Yeah.
And I'm going to focus upon building a great looking lawn, and I'll spot treat the weeds. But we can get so busy spot treating the weeds, the trauma, that we miss growing a lawn. So I become eloquent in articulating my pain.
Yeah.
But I am idiot when it comes to healing from it.
Yeah.
You see,
Very much so.
We need to be able to focus upon some of those things, and so we only got a few minutes left.
I know, man. This is so good, though, man.
As I think about how do we build resilience? How do we build resilience? So I'm going to mention some things. I want you to respond to them. Okay. So I think about. I'm going to mention maybe 4 or 5 things I think that are necessary in order for us to build resilience, and I call resilience bounce back ability. It's the ability to bounce back. You know, weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. I can take a Timex, takes a licking, but keeps on ticking, right?
Stay on.
So if any of these things I just mentioned, if y'all want to sponsor Real Life Matters, hey, I'm here for it.
My man. Holla at your boy.
Oh, yeah, holla at your boy, okay? You know, and so, but what I'm saying is that how do we build that capacity in ourselves to get slapped, to get punched, to take a gut punch, and then to say, in the words of Maya Angelou, but still I rise. How do we do it? So I want to mention a couple of things. One of them, I think, has to be how do we handle is our health. I think our health, and so guess what? The life expectancy for men of color is about 10 years younger, less than other men. Well, that means that's 10 years less that we have to build capacity within our communities. That's 10 years less of protection that we can do, 10 years less of income. Our lifelines, our life expectancy is so much shorter.
Sure.
That means there's something that we're not giving to our family. And so, but why is our lifetime, a lot of times the reason that our life expectancy is shorter is because of trauma.
Yeah.
Because of eating habits. because of crime, because we're not getting enough rest. There's a video that I saw recently on this phenomena of John Henryism, whereas John Henry worked himself to death. There's a lot of men that are working themselves to death because they have not prepared whatever, and so they're just working and working and working. My father-in-law worked until I think he was in his 80s and still a garbage man. And you see a lot of men, they're dying because they're working themselves to death.
Sure.
So how do we eat? Are we eating? Are we exercising? That's one of the ways that we build resilience, because we have the ability to fight.
Yeah.
I think another thing is community. That sense of, no, I have a responsibility to what's happening in the people around me. I need to pay attention to the men in my life. I need to pay attention to the children in my life. What is the life that I'm speaking into them?
Well, before you go to the next one, I think the thing that we have to be clear is delineating between reputation and revelation. That John Henryism is about reputation. It's about being known as a hard worker. Right? I need to be known as a provider and protector. I need to be known as this, and it's not anchored in revelation. Because when I know who I am, that informs what I do, how I'm known. And so oftentimes we'll spend a lot of energy and effort in the reputation, right? That public forward-facing.
Forward-facing.
Yeah, I want that image to shine brightly while inside I'm decaying, I'm dying on the inside because I'm unclear as to who I am.
Right.
And I just want to ask this question, do you know who you are? Right? Can you articulate? Because you're not the sum total of what you do.
Right.
Right. It's not because you're the provider. It's not because you're the protector. It's not because you're the hard worker, but who are you? And many men struggle with that, because notice that they'll immediately go to, oh, I'm a banker, or I'm an executive, or I do this. Well, no, that's what you do. That's not who you are. And so there needs to be this revelation. What is this picture of manhood that you've articulated, not just adapted, right? Because if the manhood
adapted or accepted.
Well, yes. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it could be both, right? In that instance, I think so the question then has to be, who taught you masculinity and manhood, right? And have you just accepted that as the norm and adapted that into your reputation? And that's now how you project that forward.
Right.
So now you have to almost dismantle what you've been taught about masculinity and manhood. Right. Because that doesn't necessarily mean that's who you are.
Right.
Okay. Right. And so you have to do that inward journey to discover and really have a revelation of, and not just manhood in general, but a biblical definition of manhood that informs you, and then that shapes your reputation. I'm known by revelation, not just reputation.
And so I was going to go to this next, but I'm going to jump to this now because you just mentioned the biblical definition. And I think that that's another key role in helping men heal.
Sure. Is
their faith. There is I've probably mentioned this so many times, people are sick of it. But one of my favorite quotes is by Desjardins. He says, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." And the significance of that to me is understanding as people, when my faith, and again, if people have their different faith journeys and stuff like that,
sure,
this is my worldview. You don't have to own it. You don't have to buy it. You ain't got to believe it. But this is what shapes me. And this is how I navigate the world. My understanding of my faith and my relationship with God, it is not that I am not at the top of the food chain. God is. And because God is at the top of the food chain, and He is my Father, the perfect Father. Okay, not the jacked up fathers that we have experienced in heaven on earth. But He is the symbol of what fathers are supposed to be. And He created me and recreated me and came looking for me and protected me and forgave me and redeemed me and adopted me and loved me and gave me a relationship with Him and then gives me His name and gives me power, fills me. Because of that, that's how I know who I am. I understand. So therefore, I can seek to be like Him, because when I seek to be like Him, it gives me power to be who I'm supposed to be. And therefore, I don't have to I am not defined by what the culture says.
Right.
I am
right.
not defined by what my circumstances say. I am defined by the one who created me to be like him.
Yes.
And now there may be some demonic graffiti that has been sprayed over my life that hinders and that some kind of way deforms or misinforms my identity.
Yeah. Yes.
But that's to me, again, in my worldview, the grace of God says, I come as this with this industrial washer that removes the demonic graffiti
Yeah.
that covers up the masterpiece. And so my faith gives me hope. My faith, it is not just blind trust.
Yeah.
It is an experience of a God who says, I love you and I want what's best for you. I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in the future. And so because of that.
That's how you, and I love how you painted that picture.
Yeah.
Right? As a church paints that picture, that not informs manhood, but informs humanity in general.
Yeah.
Right? What gets lost is when the church loses sight of that reality.
Yeah.
Right? We are to understand this God and reflect that Imago Dei into the world. Right? That's as we paint the picture of this Redeemer and one who adopts us, the one who forgives us, and all these things. That's an image that we can now carry into the world.
Right.
But when the church loses sight of that vision, we can't now share that to inform masculinity and womanhood and childhood and all this. And so if we drift into the political spectrum in the pulpits, then we cannot keep preaching the message of this identity that's found in Christ alone.
No.
Now we're being shaped by cultural trends, fads that come and go. Because whatever we've seen over the past couple weeks, it's going to go.
Right.
And we cannot allow that to be the messaging, because when people are in dire situation and we anchor them in a fad, that won't secure them for tomorrow.
Exactly.
That's not going to give them hope and peace.
It doesn't. And I think that we can get caught up in that. Again, I can respond to every dandelion that pops up. But in responding to every dandelion that pops up, I never deal with creating the rest of the life.
Yeah.
And I think we can do that. There's a tendency for us to get distracted by what's new rather than being firm.
Yeah.
This is my everyday life. Every day, how do I live every day with strength? How do I live every day where I have given myself the bounce back ability?
Sure.
Reaping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning.
Sure.
Trouble didn't come to stay, it came to pass.
Yeah.
And that's just not nice preacher talk.
Yeah.
That is just simply understanding as a man, what is it that gives me the ability to bounce back in the face of difficulty? In the face of blows. How do I bounce back? What puts that as you know with the Rock'em Soccer with the Rebels, the reason that they fell, they said because they were sand in their bottoms. We got too many folks that had no sand in their bottoms. We ain't got we have no sand in our bottoms.
Yeah.
So as a result, when we get smacked, we stay smacked. We get smacked and we go down. I fall and I can't get up.
Yes.
And so we need to help people. What is putting the sand in your bottom? What gives you hope?
Yeah.
And so I want to. I don't know, you want to say something else about that?
No. And I was, as you were sharing that, it was talking about the dandelions, because we can get trapped into that whole notion of chasing every little dandelion. And to me, I think that also presents an opportunity for we can now create trauma. Because trauma is about being not just the experience itself, but now being trapped by that experience. So if I could go and chase every dandelion, now I'm participating in the trauma. Right? I'm not leading you to a place of healing and restoration. One of my favorite shows is Frasier. I love Frasier.
I love Frasier.
My favorite. There's an episode he's learned to ride a bike, and in this episode, he would get so fixated on an object that he would steer his bike right into it every time. And so finally, he got delivered. He got set free, and he was able to move past objects without crashing into it.
Right.
But until he got to the end of the episode, they discovered his antagonist says, "Hey, better watch out for that huge mailbox right there."
Yeah, right. I remember that.
And he sees that and he says, "Oh my God." And he drifts right into this mailbox, and he is stuck there until the evening time.
Right.
because somebody identified something that kept him bound.
Yeah.
You know, and I said, church, we cannot fall prey to that we can't be so tunnel vision by what's in front of us, the next big thing, because now we keep, and for him, now he's reliving trauma.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I think that you're right. We have to be able to keep moving and recognize those things that are re-traumatizing us. A couple of more things I want to say before we wrap up. So I talked about the importance of health in terms of giving us the ability to resist re-traumatization.
Sure.
Community, faith, and here's another one: counseling, therapy. If you live in the Midwest, you probably have gotten stuck in a snowdrift at some point. Okay, I don't know if you've experienced that yet. We haven't had a whole lot of snow since you've been here.
Yeah, praise God.
So watch out.
Yeah, I tell God thank you.
Yeah, but if you ever get stuck in the snow, this is what you'll know. Or if you get stuck in sand, this is what you know. It is very difficult to drive and push at the same time.
Okay.
Okay.
Say more.
Either you behind the steering wheel steering, or you behind the car pushing.
Can't do both.
You can't do both of them.
Ooh.
Okay. You can't drive and push at the same time. That means that if you are driving your life, sometimes you need some other people that will come along and help you push you out of being stuck.
Yeah.
Right. That's what the whole the purpose or the point of counseling and therapy is, that there's somebody who can sit outside of your life and say, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this?
Give you a different perspective.
Different perspective is the push.
Yeah.
It is not that you are weak. Everybody gets stuck. If you live in the Midwest long enough, you're going to get stuck.
Yes.
You know, you're going to get stuck in a snowdrift. You're going to get stuck in snow. But that is why you have those people who can come along, that community that can come along, or professionals who can come along that have the right equipment to get you unstuck.
And we have to get out of our own way as well.
Yeah.
I think, so even in my research, people of color tend to be averse to going to physicians, counseling especially, because it's a sign of weakness, or some of that is just inherited mistrust.
Yes.
So if we know historically that our nation hasn't always done right by people of color in the medical field, that inherited distrust and mistrust has continued to persist in the culture. So there's just this resistance to even go to a professional. So I can literally be dying and still be hesitant to go see a physician, or emotionally die and go and neglect to go see a therapist that can help me walk through some things. But even naming that experience that has happened in our culture, that happened. Let's name that. Let's call that for what it is. But that does not have to be my inherited experience. I don't have to carry that with me to now avoid going to my physician for my annual checkup, to avoid seeing a therapist when there are things that I'm stuck in emotionally, spiritually, I need to get out of. And if we stay afraid, then there won't be healing. There won't be the opportunity for the community to now invest back into you, to push you out of this place of being stuck.
Yeah. Last thing I want to say is this, is that this is part of my journey. I encourage people to become wounded healers. Wounded healers.
I'm with that.
Okay?
I'm with that.
Because you know what? Somebody needs our story. There are a lot of people that are stuck because they don't know how to get out of their dysfunction. They don't know how to get out of their past. They don't know how to get out of their depression. They don't know how to get out of their pain. But if you have healed, if you have been through that journey, I have a responsibility to not build a couch in my dysfunction, but to build a ladder to allow me to get out. But also gives me the medium to come back and help somebody else and to help them get out as well.
Okay. So I'm about to send you a picture. So in therapy, we'll caution people from jumping back in. Okay. There's a picture of a woman who's holding onto a tree, and there's a person who's down in the pit. The idea is that you find yourself to anchor to this tree, to reach down and help pull that person out of the pit. Because if you mess around and jump in the pit with them,
they may keep you there. Absolutely. And I think that that is true. And I think that ladder So if you
Yeah.
so if you look at that ladder,
Oh, yeah.
is what I'm saying is that
Yeah.
I need to give you. I'm telling you.
And not snatching the ladder back.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But I got to give you a means to get out. But I
Yeah.
got to. Sometimes you got to walk with people.
Yeah,
You talked about
absolutely.
before about that shepherd who went in there to clean out, the poop. You get your hands dirty. You know
Yeah.
what? It gets dirty.
It gets messy,
Sometimes,
man.
but sometimes we have to step back, not back into the experience, but into the space.
Yeah. Facts.
With people, because we can't always just yell at them from safety. Come here, come here, come here. No, sometimes we got to walk back into that space and get them and walk out with them.
Yeah.
Because they don't even believe they have the capacity to walk.
Yeah. No
They
vision.
don't no vision, no belief, and they have power, but they don't realize they have it. And so I think that wounded healers are people who recognize the wounds, but they ain't bleeding.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not allowing those wounds to define them. But I am going to be seeking to heal other people, and there's a responsibility that I have to seek to heal other people.
Yes.
And because my story is important, and I'm going to be talking about this in some upcoming episodes where I'm telling my story. And me telling my story, I was hesitant to release the video, the recording. I was like, how's this going to impact people? So I've been talking to some friends who know me because I needed a level of accountability.
Yeah.
And they wanted to know, Jason, are you healed? And Jason, what's the purpose of telling that story?
Yeah.
Is the purpose for telling that story just, I got you? Or I said, no, the purpose of me telling my story is that my story is not unique.
Yeah.
A whole lot of men have my story. Too many men don't have my healing. Because I've experienced healing, I now have built a ladder that says, listen, this way out, this way up.
Yeah, come on.
This is how you come out. And I am a witness to the fact that the ladder ain't broken.
Yeah,
I want you to come out, and this is how you come out. So we need to be wounded healers that are not hiding behind the tree of shame.
Yeah. Because
of fear, anxiety, pride, or whatever, but that we are coming out from behind that shame because we have been reclothed.
That's right.
We have been redressed. We have been, our wardrobe has been replenished. And now there's a health, and now we can tell other people, let me show you how to get dressed.
Yeah.
So, man.
Man, we can keep going. I know. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, we can keep going, but this is
might
good
be a part
stuff.
3.
Yeah, it might be. So, I just, I just hope that as a community, we get out of brokenness.
Yeah.
Not brokenness is there, but we don't have to.
Yeah.
And I think that is my parting words to any man, any woman, any person who's watching this. Don't stay in your brokenness.
Yeah.
Don't just continue to sit there in it saying, I can't. No, you've fallen, but you can get up. There is hope, there is healing. And I want you to know, yes, life is difficult. Life can be difficult and pain hurts.
Yeah.
But we can be healed. And I just want us to find your place, find your faith place, find that healing place physically and emotionally. Eat right. Get rest, Sabbath, practice Sabbath.
Gotta do it, man.
Get the therapy, when you need it. Don't become John Henry where you working yourself to death. And sometimes we working just to cover because I don't want to be someplace where if I stop, I got to deal with my pain.
Yeah, it becomes another way of numbing the experience.
Exactly.
Drowning out the noise of the pain.
Right. Or if I make enough money, I can buy happiness. No, you can't. No, you can't. But cut the strings to those things that have you, that you're the puppet.
Yeah.
And those things that are ruining your life. But men, we can be healthy. We don't have to hide. We don't have to just deal.
That's right.
We can be healthy. But take advantage of those resources that are available to make sure you are doing those things. Help you become a wounded healer.
That's good.
So thank you all for joining another episode of Real Life Matters, where we try to deal with real life problems with real life people, coming up with some real life solutions. Catch you on the next episode.
All right.